I used to run my own way till the shame got heavy on me. Every door looked holy at first, but the fruit told me what it'd be. They dressed up pride like truth, wrapped chains in a pretty name. But I learned through tears and falling, not every path leads the same. So I'm laying it down at your feet, Yahuwah, I'm found. Every lie falls away when your word is the ground. I trust your righteous process. Oh, I trust your righteous process. One way that will stand that day, one way that will profit my soul. Your righteous process. Yahuwah, lead me home. Lead me home. I reject these deceitful roads that make the simple stumble. Tradition with a silver tongue can leave a whole heart humble. I want obedience, not performance. Marriage built on covenant fire, healing where the wounds are honest, deliverance from every lie. So I'm laying it down at your feet, Yahuwah, I'm found. If I suffer for your name, I will still stand my ground. I trust your righteous process. Oh, I trust your righteous process. One way that will stand that day, one way that will profit my soul. Your righteous process. Yahuwah, lead me home. Lead me home. Messiah walked it out, step by step in holy fire. He kept the Torah pure when the world called him a liar. So I will follow, even when the trial is long. Persecution may press me low, but obedience makes me strong. I trust your righteous process. I trust your righteous process. One way that will stand that day, one way that will profit my soul. Your righteous process. Yahuwah, lead me home. Lead me home. Your righteous process. Your righteous process. I'm going all the way home. All the way home.
Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Man, the title of today's message is Embrace the Process. Man, we're experiencing some difficult times. Everybody is experiencing difficult times, whether you realize it or not. And oftentimes, man, we're falling for the wrong processes. Instead of trusting the process of righteousness, instead of trusting the process of deliverance, of healing, of sanctification, of spiritual maturity. Today, man, we're going to break this down in fullness. Welcome to all in Shabbat Shalom, Israel. First and foremost, I want to thank you for tuning in to this Shabbat message. I hope you had a fruitful, a productive, and a prosperous week. I don't know about you, but this week was one of those weeks where I couldn't wait for the Shabbat rest to come along, because this week was filled with so much chaos and so much stress. But the Shabbat is here, and now we have that set apart day, and I hope that you can join me in it. The set apart day that the Most High Yah has ordained, and we are told to keep it holy. How to support the ministry? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, and set to all notifications. Share this video. If you would like to give an offering, Cash App is on the screen as well as in the description, and I thank you for that. Agenda. Shabbat Shalom, family. We are living in a generation that has become impatient with the process. Society promotes speed, shortcuts, instant gratification, and convenience, causing many people to resist anything that requires endurance, discipline, or long-term commitment. Yet, while people often reject the process established by the Most High Yahweh, they rarely question the lengthy process tied to darkness, deceit, wickedness, and worldly traditions. Many willingly devote years to pursuing careers, wealth, entertainment, worldly holdings, and fleshly desires, but struggle when righteousness requires patience, sacrifice, and transformation. This reveals a spiritual conflict because Yahweh has never operated through chaos or shortcuts. He works through order, refinement, and process. Scripture shows us that righteousness follows a narrow path, not countless alternatives designed by the enemy to confuse and divide. Yet many today resist the process of marriage because it requires growth and selflessness. They resist forgiveness because it requires humility. They resist deliverance because it requires separation and obedience. They resist enduring hardships because they desire comfort more than character. And they resist persecution because standing for truth often comes with opposition. But the question remains, do we trust Yahweh enough to embrace this process, even when it challenges our flesh? Today's teaching is a call for the true people of Yahweh to stop fighting the refining work of righteousness and to learn to embrace the very process that produces holiness, wisdom, and spiritual maturity. Biblical references. For today's Shabbat teaching, I will be using the Sefer and the Amplified Holy Bible.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave like everyone else. You were born into bondage. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Why are we here today? Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. Remember the day of the Shabbat to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. Work, Strong's number Hebrew word 4399, employment, public business, occupation, industrious, public service. But the seventh day is the Shabbat of Yahweh Elohake. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth and the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath and hallowed it. Exodus 31:13. Speak also unto the children of Yashareel, saying, Truly my Sabbath you shall guard, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh Makodeshkim. Definitions. Man, the reason I do the definitions and a breakdown is because oftentimes we have, in Western culture, we have an idea of what we think something means. And sometimes, I know sometimes from the way that I've been grown this education system, sometimes that definition can be far off. So I start with a firm foundation of giving you the baseline information. Embrace the process. Process is a systematic, repeatable series of actions or steps directed towards a specific goal of outcome. When you think about the steps of walking in truth, when you think about where are your steps directed as you're walking set apart, living set apart. Key characteristics: repeatable, designed to be done the same way multiple times. Goal oriented, focused on producing a specific result or output. Measurable, can be tracked using performance metrics to identify bottlenecks and improve efficiency. We've got the word of the Most High. We've got the Torah to tell us our violations. Structured, organizes lifestyle based upon a particular order. Process versus procedure. On this walk, the Most High wants us to follow a certain process, and that process is made up of different procedures we must strive for. While they're often used interchangeably, these terms have distinct differences. Process, the high-level view of what needs to happen and why. Focus on the overall journey from input to result. Procedure, the specific step-by-step instruction on how to execute a single task within that process. So when you think about precept upon precept, there we have procedures. But those procedures make up the walk. A lawful process. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. And if a man also strive for masteries, yet he is not crowned unless he strive lawfully. So when you think about, just because everybody is walking around and taking steps doesn't mean that they are striving lawfully. So there's a lawful process, and your steps have to be directed towards that. James chapter 1, verse 25. But whoso looks into the perfect Torah of liberty, and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. So we see that the one that is a doer of the word, his process and the steps that he's taken in that process, this is what's going to make a man blessed in his deed. Psalms 19, verse 7, the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. So we're talking about a lawful process. Man, in the world, in this day, time, and hour, man, there's a lot of different flavors. There's a lot of different religions. There's a lot of different denominations that's giving you a different process. It's giving you a different process. And ultimately, these processes, although they take up your time, when you're sitting at the judgment seat of a Mashiach and you're up out of here, it's not going to profit you in the end. There's processes out there that say that you don't have to abide by the law of the Most High Yah. That's not for you. That's for them, and this is for us. And in that, these processes are full of holes. There's going to be knowledge gaps when you're being led by the carnal processes of man rather than the Ruach HaKodesh. Truth, the righteous path. The flesh hates process. When you think about, I'll give you an example. When you think about the transition of realizing the holidays that you once celebrated, your Christmas, your Easter, your Thanksgiving, all of this stuff, once you realized that there was no biblical truth in them, and that wasn't what the Most High Yah, instructed us or commanded us to do, man, your flesh loved everything about those processes. Man, your flesh had no problem trying to go above and beyond in those processes. But when it comes to the righteous process, man, let me get in this word and let me find out how to be obedient based upon the feast days outlined in Leviticus 23, 31. Let me figure out, okay, let me study this thing to find out so I'm no longer missing the mark. Your flesh doesn't like that, but the Ruach HaKodesh, because you're striving for the holy process, your flesh is going to go against it. Ruach will guide you there. Righteousness requires a process. Man, there's people out there that tell you you go to their Sunday sun worship, and they tell you that they're worshiping the sun, and you don't understand that they're worshiping the SUN and not the SON, and they'll tell you, repeat after me and you shall be saved. And then there's nothing beyond that they teach you other than feel good messages that really don't correct the improper process that you're on with the right process. Yahweh develops his people through refining seasons, not shortcuts. Romans chapter 5, verse 3. And not only so, but we glory in tribulation also, knowing that tribulation works patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. Okay, when you think about, people have no problem with the process of trying to be rich, of trying to be wealthy. And when you think about those, man, those are some compounded habits. It's a process that you have to be willing to follow. There's some sacrifices that you have to make, but when you think about it, you can have all the money in the world like the rich young ruler, but when you get to the judgment seat of a Mashiach, you're going to find out that doesn't profit you. You got to understand, man, sweat equity, hard work, and compounded, doing the same thing over and over, where some people will say, man, that gets boring. Man, there's where your experience lies. See, in the world, oftentimes we're doing that in a fashion that doesn't amount to anything. And the Most High Yah wants us to grow spiritually by doing this according to his will. He wants us to go through the fire according to his will. Oftentimes we're going through the fire in this world because we're doing things that he has told us not to do. So you have to understand, there's a process of patience. Just because you have the fruit of the Spirit and you've got patience doesn't mean that patience has been maximized. Because having that Ruach, now that you are, walking in that Ruach, striving to live HaKodesh, following a righteous process, that patience is going to be tested. It's going to be tested. It's going to be refined. James chapter 1, verse 2, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Just because you're on this righteous process doesn't mean you're not going to be tempted, but we have to embrace this. See, there's processes out there, religious processes, that tell you to give in to all your temptations. Give in. They say things like, God doesn't want you to miss out on all this fun. Very deceiving, very deceptive. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. What good is a faith that hasn't been tested? But that's part of the righteous process. Seems like we live in a daytime and hour where everybody has, hourly, one day Sunday faith. That's what they're promoting. One day Sunday faith. Hourly faith. But when you're going through these tribulations, man, your flesh is going against those temptations, that persecution, the things that you're having to endure. And then oftentimes what happens? There's a lot of doubt in your process instead of faith. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. That you may be perfect. Why is it that there's all these processes out here that when you're striving for perfection, like the book tells us to do, you have people saying, man, you're a holy roller. Man, you're a Bible thumper. You're holier than thou. Because they have submitted themselves, their lives, to all these other processes that's not of the Most High Yah. They got all these processes that want you to constantly fall short. And the Most High Yah, his will is that you may be perfect and entire and made whole, wanting nothing. Understanding the problem. Embracing the process first starts with understanding the problem. We live in a culture that values speed, convenience, and instant gratification. This generation more than ever rejects anything with a righteous process. Man, how many of you out there have an air fryer and you use that air fryer? Man, that air fryer is very fast, it's convenient, and it gives you an instant meal, an almost instant meal. But there's something about the way that grandma and grandpa the way that they cook their food. Man, I remember my great grandma would get up and start cooking dinner early in the morning, putting the things on, start prepping, and you know, it was all about when she made greens. It was all about what they called the pot liquor. You know, nowadays we wonder why we have so many issues, but we're following a new world order process rather than relying on the old path like I talked about last week. And from that, you get a different flavor. You don't get to be the salt of the earth like the book says by following worldly process. That only comes from righteousness and walking in truth and living HaKodesh. This generation more than ever rejects anything with a righteous process. Man, you have to think about men and women today and how they have devalued marriage. They rather be in situationships, entanglements. You got men and women out here promoting being side chicks. You got women out here saying, well, the side chick gets the best of the married man. You got the side dude saying, well, we get the best of the married women. Nobody's really embracing the process that the Most High Yah has set forth. And because of that, man, there comes eternal damnation. A vicious, habitual cycle of living in sin, living in transgression, violating that perfect Torah. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. Man, we're in a daytime and hour where people want to hear what they want to hear. They don't care about if it's the truth. How does it make my flesh feel? This flesh don't want to submit to a righteous process. So I want somebody that's going to tell me fairy tales. I want somebody that's going to help feed my delusion. But after their own lust, listen to that, after their own lust, shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. You wonder why, when you think about this, I'm going to just name some names. When you wonder why in our community, why certain people are allowed to go forth and they're constantly making headlines and their transgressions are being exposed. Think about that. You've got, you had Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp walking around, getting out of SUVs with condoms on his belt. Think about that. What is that promoting? Is this a man that's constantly doing interviews and having great conversations of wisdom according to the Most High Yah? Or is this a man that is, trusting the worldly process and promoting things? And when you think about him getting caught up in his sexual escapades, think about it. Recently you've got Cheyenne Bryant under fire. Why is it in our community, man, that we have, we support the scammers, we support the convicts, we support the lawless. We got to understand the problem. This is a woman when questioned about her credentials, pretty much said, flip y'all. Y'all don't need to know about my credentials, but yet still wanting and expecting the support. You got to think about the Cam Newtons and the Nick Cannons. You got to understand, man, our community lets certain people go forth, or there's certain people that are pushing these people to make sure that we never recognize the problem. Man, you can't be drawing your source of wisdom from these people. As a single man trying to walk righteously, you can't mistake, okay, man, Shannon Sharp, that's my elder. I need to follow what he's saying. That's good wisdom. No, that's carnal wisdom. Man, that's earthly, that's sensual, that's devilish wisdom. That's not the wisdom from the Most High. When you think about it, man, when you as a daughter of Zion, you can't follow the wisdom coming from somebody like Cheyenne Bryant, a B. Simone. You can't follow it, because when you think about it, they're not even embracing the process. A lot of what they give you is shortcuts. A lot of what they give you is deception. And people take this stuff hook, line, and sinker. It says after their own lust. So you gotta determine what are you lusting after, and how that draws you to certain people. You gotta understand, what have those people that I've named, what are they doing to get you closer to your salvation? What message has they given you that is in alignment with the will of a Mashiach? Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I don't give a dang if it's the president, the vice president. When you get to the judgment seat of a Mashiach and it's judgment day, and you being judged for all the words you said, whether good or bad, in your deeds, and you sit up here talking about, I know such and such, you don't realize the problem. 2 Timothy 4:4, and they shall turn away their ears from truth. People don't want to hear this truth straight up, because rather than dealing with that uncomfortableness from your flesh and saying, you know what, I need this, or else I'm going to burn. It says, and shall be turned unto fables. Nothing of truth. Stories that sound good. Conversation with no spiritual backing. No anointing. Wisdom with no oil on it. Society rejects discomfort. Right now, you have to understand, man, our society is experiencing a lot of discomfort. And I want you to think about it. I want you to think about some of these men in ministry that once was promoting whatever president or whatever side, left wing, right wing, same bird. But the minute they jack them gas prices up, now they're like, you need to question what I originally told you. It's because they're experiencing discomfort. You have to think, man, in modern society, most married people don't have sanctified married friends around them telling them to stick in there. So the minute some discomfort due to spiritual warfare in marriage comes along, your solution of 1 + 1, we got a problem, what is the answer? You coming up with divorce every time, rather than understanding, rather than saying, you know what, we need to rebuke this spiritual warfare. We need to pray to see what spirit are we fighting against, so we know how to war against it. People desire blessings without development. Everybody out there and their mama want a blessing. But how many people want to be developed for the betterment of the kingdom of the Most High? The flesh wants outcomes without obedience. You got Keisha and Rodney out there. Man, they want to live a life of abundance while making foolish decisions. While making decisions according to the world, and they wonder why the life is not as fruitful as it could be. Wonder why there's a vicious cycle of struggle. Man, our flesh wants all the great outcomes. Everybody and their mama wants salvation, but they don't want obedience. Because when you start talking about feast days, you start getting into that Torah, you start getting into what Hamashiach actually worked for, you find out that these folk reject it. They rebel against it. And we know that Hamashiach came to give us an example. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 8. Now go write it before them in a table, and note it in a sefer, that it may be for the time to come forever and ever. For that this is a rebellious people, lying children that will not hear the Torah of Yahweh. That's pretty weighty. There's a reason why in these other processes that you might have grew up in, these other religions, these other denominations, the reason they didn't mention anything with the Torah unless they was talking against it. Look at the good word, that this is a rebellious people. What are we rebelling against? Are we rebelling against demonic things? Or are we rebelling against righteousness? Lying children. Not only are we out here telling lies and not speaking in truth, but our mindset, children. Children that will not hear. We don't want to hear it. Isaiah 30:10, which say to the seer, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things. Speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceit. Man, you got men and women out there that every day they wake up, they listen to false prophets on YouTube. And these people are very good at tickling your ears. They're very good at saying, I woke up this morning and God told me you're going to get a house. And God told me you're going to get a car. And God woke up and told me Morris Chestnut is going to be your husband and Megan Good is going to be your wife. And, all of this foolishness. I talked about that probably about 2-3 years ago. But, man, you're not following a right process, because the most time when you think about the prophets and the warnings and things that they foretold, it was to get you ready. It was so you could prepare. Not that so you could live your best life according to the world and keep living in rebellion. Get you out of the way, turn aside out of the path, cause the Holy One of Yasharel to cease from before us. So they didn't pretty much lie so much, deceive so much, and rebel so much, and prophesied all these wrong things, all these things that sound. You gotta understand. One thing about a false prophet is, man, it sounds smooth. It says, "Speak unto us smooth things." Prophesy deceit. So when you talk about a false prophet, you're talking about a smooth operator. And if you're not walking in truth, if you're not striving for that perfect law of liberty, if you're not striving for that Hamashiach-like perfection, you're not going to have the discernment to recognize it. You're going to end up falling for it. You got to understand, man. You know, in Cheyenne Bryant's rebuttals, man, she started doing. She started to segue into ministry by reciting some scriptures. But at the end of the day, what process are these people living according to? You know, you hear the Shannon Sharps, you hear all these people mention scripture in the Bible and all this, but are you living it? Anybody can remember some scriptures, and oftentimes they're using it to deceive. But it's ultimately to cause the Holy One of Yasharel to cease, so you'll no longer be Hakodesh. They don't want you to be Hakodesh. Embracing dark processes, man. That is how most of us are raised, unless we're raised up with commandment keeping, Torah abiding, faithful parents. We're taught to embrace dark processes. People commit to lengthy world pursuits while resisting spiritual growth. People willingly commit to worldly careers. Man, they say, hey, it's going to take you 8 years to be a master of this, 8 years, 18 years to be a doctor in this. People do it every day. Sinful habits, man. We'll go out our way to learn the process of how to be addicted, how to have all these vices, how to be the best gambler, how to be the best drug addict, unbiblical traditions, entertainment. Man, we'll go out our way to be entertained, but we won't go out our way to live Hakodesh. Man, we'll put more energy and effort into planning out our entertainment than working out our salvation. Pagan holidays. Man, you didn't started 2 months before the heathen Christmas, and you up here getting ready and preparing and going through these processes and doing these procedures, and we got to do this and all of it, hanging all this stuff. But yet you don't have that same kind of energy towards the Most High Yah's feast days. First time you read about a feast of unleavened bread and the Passover, you didn't really want to clean your house. You said, man, that's too much work. But it wasn't too much work when you were celebrating things of a dark process. Things that's rooted in idolatry, fleshly lifestyles. Lifestyles of comfort rather than lifestyles of righteousness. No, I have no problem with that. Man, you will go out your way to be revealing, sexually immodest in your dress and in your appearance, to put off that aura of promiscuity. But you don't spend that same kind of energy on the process of ensuring that you are modest as a man or a woman. It says, yet they reject repentance, obedience, and righteousness. Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world. Man, you have to embrace that part of the process. You're not supposed to look like the world. Oftentimes, that's our biggest thing. We don't want to be different. We don't want to be set apart. We don't want to, when you think about it, the word says we are a peculiar people. Be not conformed to this world. So the world has a particular process or processes that it's trying to get you to follow, but you can't conform to it. The Most High Yah has already established what he wants you to follow. And wherever you're conforming to, according to the world, oftentimes this is where your problem might lie. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of Elohim. You mean to tell me you can live a lifetime of fulfilling the will, the perfect and acceptable will of Elohim without living through a righteous process or going through a righteous process? How so? It's not possible. It's not possible. He works through process. Yahweh works through process, not shortcuts. And Yahweh develops people gradually through refinement. When you think about work out your salvation with fear and trembling, the Most High Yah give you a shortcut to say, nah, if you don't want to do that, Here's a shortcut you can take. Here's a 24-hour cleanse that I got for you right here. And you do this 24-hour cleanse, you guaranteed to make it to the kingdom. Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens. You got people out there that will deceive you, and you are set to burn. You're set to perish. You're set for destruction, eternal damnation. But they'll tell you, yeah, this is your winning season. You got to understand, man, when you think about seeds, when you think about fruit trees, man, what fruit tree produce fruit all year round, or does it go through season? You think about your gardening, your husbandry, your vine dressing, man, there's a season for it. There's a season for planting different things. There's a season for harvesting different things. And a time to every purpose under the heavens. Behold, I have, Isaiah 48:10, behold, I have refined you, but not with silver. I have chosen you in the furnace of affliction. You're going to go through some things. Just like when you think about the elements of the seasons on your flesh, spiritually, you're going to go through things. You're going to go through some seasons where it's going to feel hot, like you burning up. What you think? You going to go through the fire and not experience no heat? You're going to go through experiences where, man, it seems like, man, this is cold. That wind chill going to get you. You're going to go through seasons where, when you think of like, the harvesting season, when it's nice and cool and you got nice breezes. But when you look fundamentally behind all these different seasons, man, there's things happening in the background spiritually, especially on this process of righteousness, that allows us to grow in spiritual maturity. So growth has stages. Refinement requires time. Okay, so what they've given us, when you think about genetically modified seeds, they've given you seeds to where you can plant them any time of year and it's going to take off. But they've given you a different process, because that's not the process of what the Most High Yah left you. Most High Yah left you something that was untainted, unadulterated, and it was clean. You planted it this time, and 6 months later, you've got something. But the way of the lawless and their processes is, well, let me figure out how to modify this so you can get something in 60 days. And you wonder why it's off. You got people out there talking about, okay, the cabbage is rubbery. It won't burn. You got the watermelon is rubbery. This stuff, you got to understand, this is not of the Most High Yah. See, it's the process that you're on that reveals faithfulness. Everybody out there claim to have faith. Everybody that go to church claim to have faith, claim to believe. But what process are they on? Process reveals faithfulness. The process you on reveals your commitment to the Most High Yah. You got some people out here that think that they have given their life to the Most High Yah, and they have given themselves to Hasatan by way of the process that they submit to. There's only one way. The enemy promotes many paths, but Yahweh established one. Many alternatives exist in the world. Only one path leads to life. Confusion is a tool of the enemy. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do even so to them. For this is the Torah and the prophets. Enter you in the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. So you got a lot of these people following this process. And really it leads to destruction. It's a wide gate. It says, because narrow is the gate and troublesome is the way which leads to life. Trouble? You mean to tell me you got a whole, all these people out here that claim to believe they're looking for the troublesome way? The way of affliction, the way of persecution, which leads to life? But what is the word? What is the good word of the Most High Yah says? It says, and few be there that find it. That's why only a remnant will be saved. A lot of your loved ones, a lot of your friends, man, they're going to get sucked up in these processes, and you wonder why they're going through some of the things they're experiencing in life. See, there's a process that gives you no protection. And then there's a process that gives you protection. That's the righteous process. You got to understand, man, you got men and women out here that want to live sexually immoral lifestyles of whores and whoremongers, but yet they expect all this protection from the Most High Yah, and they're coming back with all these vile things. This is why they're having all of these problems, because they don't want to follow the process. When you put sex before marriage, before a covenant, why you think we got all these children being raised, in a single parent household? Not only have we been operating and people cheering us on to live out of order, but we just reject the ways of righteousness. Men, we don't stick in there long enough. We don't have enough patience. We don't have the fruit of the spirit. The world is telling women, you don't have to stay. Be strong and independent. It's not what the word of the Most High, Yah, his process says. Woman is not independent from man, and man is not independent from woman. John chapter 14:16, Yahshua said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. Think about that. These people got you trying to go through the Prophet Muhammad. These folk got you trying to go through all of these other deities and zodiac signs, and you're not gonna get to the Most High Yah by going through Zeus, by going by the deity of your zodiac. I don't care what you think, you're not gonna get there. These folk gonna lead you into lawlessness. Eternal damnation is where their processes will lead you to. Psalms 119:1. Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the Torah of Yahweh. Here we have a process. I want you to think about it in Christendom, Catholicism, this is straight out of the book. This is straight out of the book. But they're anti this process. Why is that? Blessed are they that guard his testimonies and seek him with whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. What's his ways? Is his ways worldly? Is his ways unrighteous, or his ways righteous? You have commanded us to guard your precepts diligently. There's the obedience. Oh, that my ways were directed to guard your statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed, when I have respect unto all your commandments. I will praise you with the uprightness of heart when I shall learn your righteous judgments. I will guard your statutes. Oh, forsake me not utterly. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? Oh, snap. So you got to understand, what good is the baptism of being dipped in the water going to do if you're not willing to go through the fire in this process here? Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? So you got a lot of people getting baptized and they're not even getting filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. You got a lot of people coming up with other spirits, and you're coming up with more demonic spirits when you went down in that water than when you started off with. And when you come out of that water, guess what you're not doing? Guess what the young men are not doing? You're not cleansing your way by taking heed there according to your word. You got people out there that say by taking heed there according to the New Testament. Psalms 119:10, with my whole heart I have sought you. Man, I'm going to talk about this demonic concept of falling in love. I'm going to do a later teaching on that, because some of this stuff, these processes that we fall into, falling in love, that means you got to take a fall first. Most High Yah ain't outlined none of this stuff. You got to be able to recognize the enemy. With my whole heart I have sought you. See, when you seek the Most High Yah with your whole heart, rather than trying to divide it up for your mama, your daddy, all of these earthly people that should be serving the Most High Yah and seeking him with their whole heart, and when you get hit with the okie doke. Oh, let me not wander from your commandments. All these commandments, when you think about the Most High Yah's commandments, man, if somebody hates you, if you got a spouse that hates you for keeping the commandments as a husband or a wife, that lets you know they submitted to a different process. Because nobody righteous would hate you or be in opposition against you for striving to keep the commandments. Talking about some spiritual warfare. You got people out there, men out there that want a woman to choose them over Yah. You got women out there that want the man to choose them over the Most High Yah. What part of the process is that? When he says, With my whole heart I have sought you, and let me not wander. Your word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against you, so I can bring to remembrance. Some people, you have to understand, when you don't have the Torah in your heart, which the Most High Yah says He is writing on your heart, but when you don't strive to learn that, what do you have in you that brings to remembrance? Oh, snap, I'm violating. Oh, snap, I shouldn't do that. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, teach me your statutes. With my lips I have declared all the judgments of your mouth. I have rejoiced in the way of your testimonies as much as in all riches. I will meditate on your precepts. Meditate in your precepts is part of the process. And have respect unto your ways. I will delight myself in your statutes. I will not forget your word. Deal bountifully with your service, that I may live and guard your word. Open my eyes that I may behold wonderful things out of your Torah. Listen how this process and these processes in the world speak of the law, speak of the Torah. But look at how beautiful this is. This is a beautiful way. This is a beautiful process. Open my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of your Torah. I am a stranger in the earth. Hide not your commandments from me. Think about that. If you feel like a stranger, you feel different, you feel peculiar. So you got to embrace that process of being different. My soul breaks for the longing that is unto your judgment at all times. You have rebuked the proud that are cursed, which do err from your commandments. Remove me from reproach and contempt, for I have kept your testimonies. Princes also did sit and speak against me, but your servant did meditate in your statutes. Your testimonies are my delight and my counselors. My soul cleaves unto the dust. Quicken me according to your word. I have declared my ways, and you have heard me. Teach me your statutes. I'm going to talk about the process of marriage. Man, your average person in Christendom, I'll go as far as to say 98% of your average man or woman in Christianity or Catholicism doesn't understand the process of marriage. I didn't understand the process of marriage until I started walking in the ways, understanding Torah and the examples set forth via the word. Because how did in Deuteronomy the Most High Yah tell us not to cut a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, not to cut a deal, not to cut a contract with the inhabitants of the land, and yet that's the same thing that's destroying a lot of marriages, because the Most High Yah is not the head of that paper process. Many reject marriage because they reject growth required within the covenant. See, everybody can call themselves while single a good man or a good woman, but you ain't been through no fire, you ain't been through no testing, you haven't had to endure temptations because you've been so busy giving into them temptations. Don't let these people fool you. Ephesians 5:25, women, submit yourselves unto your own men as unto Yahweh. Why do people hate this process? Why do demons manifest when we talk about this process? For the man is the head of woman, even as Mashiach is the head of the called out assembly, and he is the savior of the body. You got to understand, man, a lot of women won't attain salvation because of this right here. Hamashiach is the savior of the assembly, of the congregation, of the ecclesia. Therefore, as the called out assembly is subject unto Mashiach, so let the women be to their own men in everything. Ooh. Hate that process. What you mean I got to in everything? Men, love your women. That's not falling in love. That's not a fall in love. That's not a deceptive type process. No, that's take care of your woman. Make sure her basic necessities are met according to righteousness. Even as Mashiach also loved the called out assembly and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify. Listen what Mashiach did for the called out assembly. As a man, how can you be following the process, but yet you don't want to sanctify and cleanse your woman with the washing of water by the word? Sometimes as men, we put more filth when we take a woman. We put more filth in her life when we're following a worldly process instead of a righteous one. that he might present it to himself, that he might present it to himself, that you might present her to yourself as a glorious, called out assembly, not having a spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. Like, what good are you doing as a husband if you're not trying to wash your woman with the word? Better yet, how many men out there are trying to wash a woman with the word, but they not living the word themselves? I told you, man, our flesh likes discomfort. When you think about this order of this process right here of marriage, man, your flesh don't like the comfort of submitting women, but it's for your protection. It's to remove the reproach, to find you blameless because you have submitted to authority. And it's just like if we submit to the authority of Hamashiach, we submit to the authority of the Most High Yah, and we are obedient in our actions. I want you to think about it. When it comes to judgment, ain't no blame to be placed on you. You are righteous. But it's doing what you want to do and following those processes that oftentimes leaves you uncovered, leaves you unprotected. And when you get to the judgment seat of a Mashiach, then you're going to find out, oh snap, I done got myself into some trouble. Marriage teaches sacrifice, patience, covenant, accountability, selflessness. Accountability is one of those things, man, where you got men out there. When you have a woman, you might think right now you're a good leader. But put that leadership to the test. Allow that leadership to be tested, and I guarantee you it will be refined through the seasons of life. I guarantee you'll spiritually mature, and you'll find out that you've got some work to do. Sisters out there, I challenge you to put your submission to the test through the process of marriage. And I guarantee you got some work to do, just as we all got work to do in our submission unto the Most High Yah. Oftentimes when we experience this warfare in marriage, it's because we're not equally yoked. It's because we're submitted to our own processes, and the enemy can come right there and attack that. But when we're in this covenant and we're equally yoked, that's the process that the Most High Yah wants us on. How is it that we have patience with everybody else? We can have patience with our coworkers. We can have patience here. We can have patience there. But we don't even have patience in marriage. Ben, I talked about this not too long ago. When you think about the sanctified husband sanctifying the wife, the unbelieving wife, and the sanctified wife sanctifying the unbelieving husband, how many times we hear that today? Or do we see people running out of patience? Do we see people running out of patience and just rushing down there to go get a paper divorce? And then what do they run back to? They run back to being whoremongers and whores. Don't nobody want to sacrifice everything. Everybody wants an abundant marriage, a blessed, prosperous marriage, but they don't want to sacrifice nothing. You got to understand, marriage is about selflessness, leading by example, servitude. But these are words that when you start digging down to the nitty gritty of it, men and women that say that they have faith, say that they believe, they have problems with. Where in the book is the Most High Yah told you that marriage is about happiness? Why do we have so many people leaving marriage? Because I'm not happy. Out of everything we talked about today, when you think about this persecution, these spiritual attacks, you're doing something. When a man take a wife and a woman is taken by a man to be a wife, you're following a process that the Most High Yah has ordained. And for that reason, man, you're doing something the enemy don't like. But yet, you're not expecting any persecution. The minute that persecution comes, that affliction comes, you're ready to jump ship and abandon the process. Man, if both people wake up and think about, hey, man, as a husband, let me serve the Most High Yah. Man, that is your rightful service unto your wife, because you're giving her the best example that you can. When wives wake up and say, man, let me serve the Most High Yah today, that is your righteous servitude unto your husband because, man, you're giving him the best wife that he can get. But that's not how we waking up. We want the process that wants us to be self-serving. You got to understand, man, how much of what you're doing is for the betterment of the family, or is it for the betterment of you and your happiness? Women, think about that. What are you doing on a daily basis that's for the betterment of the family? Or are you doing it because it's your will instead of Yah's will? And we wonder why we struggle in this area. Many want companionship but reject refinement. Man, let me tell you something, man. Your husband might be getting on your last nerve. You might be ready to leave him. Your wife might be getting on your last nerve. But you waited, listen to this. You waited 4 years and endured the process of getting a degree. How is it that after 2 weeks you ready to leave him? What's that degree gonna profit you at Judgment Day? Versus having a little bit more patience and praying to seek it. You sit up swearing up and down, man, I done prayed for him. I done prayed for it, and it ain't nothing happened. I'm not seeing no change. Well, wait a minute. Does change happen according to your will or according to the will of the Most High Yah? Sometimes we lose track of it on these fraudulent processes, and we get a wild hair up our butt and misconstrue the fact that the Most High Yah is the creator and we are the creation. Man, what if it took 10 years of prayer for that prayer to be answered? Do you have it? Do you have that kind of endurance? Because guess what? At the end of the day, nobody has put a gun to our head and made us marry any of these people. Men or women, husband or wives. But yet, when it comes to conflict in marriage, we act like somebody put a gun to our head, and if we don't divorce them, we're gonna leave. Many want companionship but reject refinement. Everything that I'm talking about is a process of being refined. You ain't gonna stay the same. No wife should stay the same from 5 years ago when her husband married her, and vice versa. No husband should stay the same. Well, he ain't the same person no more. He ain't supposed to be if he's growing spiritually. She's not supposed to be. They've been refined. The process of forgiveness. Forgiveness is rarely instant. It is a process of healing and obedience. Flesh seeks revenge. Yahweh calls for mercy. Blessed are the merciful. How come it's that the most people that want all the mercy are the ones that's not granting any mercy? Forgiveness frees the heart. Matthew 6:14. For if you forgive men their transgression, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Man, I was talking to some people this week about this. Some soldiers this week about this. Oftentimes, man, when we flat out say, man, I'm not willing to forgive. Man, people don't understand what they have, like how they have diverted the process. And how much weighty anxiety, depression, and stress that you've brought on yourself by sitting up there. How much anger you just harbored onto by saying, you know what, I'm not going to forgive because you're stubborn. But yet, guess what? When it's everybody's time to be sitting up there before Hamashiach, I'm such a forgiving. Wait a minute. But then again, you remember back in 2003 when you said this is the person that you won't forgive? You can't forgive? How am I going to forgive you? But if you forgive not men their transgression, neither will your Father forgive your transgression. How am I to forgive you when you're harboring all this unforgiveness? But yet here you are, standing here today, smiling, hee-heeing and ha-haing, and wanting all this forgiveness. Colossians 3:13, forbearing one another and forgiving one another, if any man have a quarrel against any, even as Mashiach forgave you, so also do you. Man, let me go back to that marriage one. Man, a lot of you have forgiven men, you've forgiven your partners. Sisters, you've forgiven your sisters for all kinds of heinous stuff. And you've overlooked it. You just let it go. But when it comes to your spouse, comes to your husband or your wife, oh no, now forgiveness has to be weaponized. I just can't forgive him. Wait a minute. The one that's actually in this fight with you, the one that's behind these four walls with you, you can't forgive? the one that's making sure you got what you need on a daily basis, you can't forgive. I'm striving for perfection. That don't mean I'm perfect. I still got some refinement to go through, but yet, you got to understand. When you think about in marriage, because that's what Hasatan wants to attack. He wants to attack the nuclear family. And if he can divide y'all, then he's done his job. So therefore, forgiveness in marriage. Forgiveness in marriage. Man, your homeboy do something, violate you. Next thing you know, y'all be cracking a beer and y'all be like, man, we good. Same thing, sister. Y'all be didn't have some brunch or some lunch and you be didn't forgave him. Overlooked it and hugged it out. But this is where our heart gets cold. It's telling us to forgive one another. Man, when you think about unforgiveness, man, you gonna understand that there's a chemical reaction that goes, not only a spiritual reaction, but there's a chemical reaction in the body that's tied to illness and things like that when you're harboring unforgiveness. Man, look at somebody unforgiving in their natural state, and I guarantee you they're going to age faster than forgiving. The process of deliverance. Deliverance is not merely a moment. It often involves continued obedience. John chapter 8, verse 36, if the Son Yeshua therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Luke 11:24, when the unclean ruach is gone out of a man, he walks through dry places, seeking rest and finding none. He says, I will return to my house whence I came. And when he comes, he finds it swept and garnished. 26, then he goes and takes to him 7 other ruachs more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. Man, oftentimes we think this deliverance thing is a one-time thing. Where's the Most High Yah told you that? Has he said this is a one-time thing, or are you going to have to constantly work at it? Are you going to have to constantly endure? Are you going to have to be patient? What if the Most High Yah chips away at it? Whatever you're trying to get delivered from, what if he chips away at it? But oftentimes we look at it as if it's not instant, if we don't get instant gratification, if it's not expedient, it hadn't worked. Man, when you think about the word saying, do not be derelict in the laying on of hands. Why is it that we want to lay hands on one time and then when it don't work, we like, man, wait a minute, what's going on? Well, what if the book wants us to lay hands continually? What if that's a sign for people to see, man, these people are believers. Man, they believe that this individual can get healed, that they can get delivered. You know what that does? That attracts more people. But oftentimes, man, we fall short of that. We pray one time. We got that one time prayer. We want that. We didn't spend a whole lifetime through these other processes, but we want to pray one time and want all this stuff overturned. Not that the Most High Yah can't do it, but you're going to have to follow and embrace the process. How many parents out there got children dealing with stuff? How many of you willing to lay hands on them on a daily basis, on a nightly basis? Health issues, ailments, on a daily basis. And still having faith increased. With no action or no deliverance being seen, but your faith is increasing because you just compounding on the process and the procedure of laying on of hands. Man, when you are looking for all these shortcuts and things like this, you have people out here, okay, they're looking for truth. Man, they're looking for healing. And because they want it fast, because they want it expediently, because they're looking for something that's going to allow them to feel good or allow them to keep the vices they have, what do? They go to these places and what is it? You're going to pick up 7 other ruachs more wicked than himself. So you're going to be in worse shape than you initially were because you didn't want to follow Most High Yah's process of deliverance. Deliverance requires separation, renewal, guarding doors, and obedience. Many seek freedom, but return to bondage. You have to think, man, the word says the truth shall set you free. But what is it when people hear the truth and they experience discomfort of the flesh? What do? They return back to bondage. Okay, let's look at Moshe. Exodus 14:11. And they said unto Moshe, because there were no graves in Mizraim, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? But that separation in the wilderness was for their benefit. They didn't see it. Wherefore have you dealt thus with us to carry us forth out of Mizraim? Is not this word that we did tell you in Mizraim, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Mizraim? For it had been better for us to serve the Mizraim that we should die in the wilderness. They didn't understand that in the wilderness there was life. And this is the reason why they didn't submit to Moshe's leadership. Obey them that have rule over you, so it be to your benefit. They were ready to run back to Egypt, to go back to bondage. You got to understand, while in Egypt, this life is hard. But they grew comfortable in dark processes rather than wanting to be free. And this is why on several accounts, man, they was giving Moshe the business. They was trying to, like, Moshe was being persecuted and spiritually wore down by the same people that he was helped leading up. Like, he was helped trying to lead them to life. That's crazy. But you know what? That still holds true to this day. The same people that you are trying to lead by example as a man or a woman are the same people that's going to be persecuting you. The process of enduring. Endurance is part of righteousness. Endurance builds maturity. Waiting develops faith. Pressure produces strength. Pressure produces strength. You know what that means? We got to put some stress on you. We got to put a load on you. You got to be load bearing. Because if you can't bear no load, what am I going to use you for? You say you got all this faith, but when I test that faith and I put some stress on you, you buckle every time. Your faith turned into doubt. Matthew 24:13. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. Hebrews 10:36. For you have need of patience, that after you have done the will of Elohim, you might receive the promise. Galatians 6:9. And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Why do we want to faint? Because we've been doing good and everybody else out here doing bad. They doing according to their flesh, and what happens? We get tired of doing good. Why I'm the only one that's got to do right? Why I'm the one that's got to forgive? Why I'm the one that's got to cast all my anxieties on the Most High Yah? Why I'm the one that's got to keep these feast days and everybody else can do what they see how we get going? See, sometimes we faint, like we faint in our word, we faint in our speech. That's why I told you, you got to be willing to be different. Because we live in a world where everybody is content and comfortable with doing good according to their own eyes, doing good according to these demonic processes, not according to righteousness, but it's you that's doing right and doing well according to the righteousness and the will of the Most High Yah. It's you that sometimes you're getting tested, man, you know, how much longer I got to do this? Rather than saying, man, I'm thankful that the Most High Yah has allowed me the time to be able to do this. How much longer is it going to be? We don't understand what we're prompting when we say things like that. You know, let us not be weary in well-doing, being obedient, being submissive, being faithful, walking in truth, you know, facing the persecution, the affliction, being tried by fire. You get hot in that kitchen, but that's good and well. That's the perfect will of the Most High Yah, that you be tested. Trust the process. Stop resisting what Yahweh is using to refine you. Man, that could be your husband. That could be your wife. Man, that could be affliction you're dealing with. Rather than going through it, going through the fire is not running from the fire. Process is preparation. Delay is not denial. Refinement is love. Man, he's chastising you. You're facing this stuff because he loves you. Trust Yahweh over your feelings. Man, you got some people that think that they are filled with the Ruach HaKodesh and they're filled with their feelings. And everything that flesh feel, they say, God is telling me this. Most of y'all ain't told you this stuff. That's your flesh. Trust Yahweh over your feelings. Yahweh is spirit. Yahweh is Ruach. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in El Yahweh with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. Why is that? The Most High Yah ain't never failed nobody. But our ways have definitely failed us and a lot of other people. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path in all your ways. So you got to stop trying to acknowledge that you're right. Because you ain't never been 100% right, but he has. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. See, when you say, the will of the Most High Yah is right, and you submit, even when this affliction comes, even when this warfare comes, may he direct your path. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh and depart from evil. Depart from evil? That's the part of the process people don't like. They want to run towards evil. Why? Because it seems fun. For the moment, it seems fun. Seems entertaining. Seems fulfillment. But when your life is in shambles, then you're going to be wanting a miracle to be performed, but you don't have the faith for that. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says Yahweh, thoughts of peace and not of evil, and to give you an expected end. Final charge. The true people of Yahweh must stop fighting the process of righteousness and begin trusting the one who established it. Man, out of all these different flavors, out of all these different religions, out of all these different denominations, whatever you want to call it, oftentimes, man, way back when I first started this channel, man, I did a teaching on who started a lot of these different denominations and things like this, and how they cause people to get off the way. But the Most High Yah, when he gives you the full volume of the book, not a portion of it, not a piece of it that people hold on to, man, he's the one that's established this process. And you have to embrace it. You got to embrace the process of marriage, forgiveness, deliverance, endurance, persecution, spiritual growth. See, the process may be difficult, but it is holy. It's Hakodesh. It's purposeful. You got to understand, through this process, man, you are going to demonstrate virtue. Man, that is a right moral way of thinking in order to live your life, and others can see that and have an example to follow. They see the Hamashiach in you and leading us closer to Yahweh. But oftentimes these processes that we're following, well before we come into the knowledge of the truth, or that people leave the truth for to run back to, aren't leading people closer to Yahweh. They're leading people closer to the enemy, to Hasatan. James chapter 1 verse 12. Blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life. Man, you say you the fastest? Man, let's line you up against some other people and put it to the test. Let's put some pressure on you. Let's let you have to perform through these cramps, through people booing at you. See, it says, which Yahweh has promised to them that love him. Man, you got to run your race. Man, don't let anything in this world get in between you and your salvation. Don't let these lies stop you from getting to the truth. In Ecclesiastes, strive for truth until death. Man, don't let people with their deceitful processes fool you out of adhering to the ways of the Torah. Man, don't let this science stop you from getting and giving the deliverance, based upon you receiving power. Man, when you receive that Ruach HaKodesh, you receive power. Man, don't let these people, that's living according to the world, that don't have marriage, that don't have somebody to come home to. Don't let them fool you with this single life. Man, you better invest in what you got. Invest in this process. Don't let people fool you into thinking that vengeance and getting even and keeping score is better than forgiveness. I guarantee you it's not. I guarantee you it's not. Man, working out your salvation with fear and trembling is a marathon. It's not just a short little race. We got a lot of people that can sprint here, sprint there, but no, this thing requires endurance. Don't the word say, blessed are you when they persecute you? You got these folk telling you, well, if you're receiving all this persecution, you might be doing something wrong. I beg to differ. You might be doing something right. You are doing something right when you're being persecuted by the world. Man, you got people that are aging. They're going to get all kind of education to try to make up for spiritual growth. And it ain't going to never be spiritual growth. Just because you put an education and a degree behind you reading the Bible don't equal spiritual growth. You got to be willing to walk through this process, to walk this thing out. As we conclude, let us understand that the promise of righteousness is not punishment. It is preparation. The Most High Yah does not call his people to instant perfection, but to faithful transformation through obedience and endurance. Every righteous process has a purpose. Marriage teaches covenant and sacrifice. Forgiveness teaches mercy and humility. Deliverance teaches separation and discipline. Persecution teaches steadfastness and courage. Endurance teaches trust and spiritual maturity. The enemy promotes many paths because confusion benefits rebellion. But Yahweh has established only one way, the way of righteousness and obedience and truth. Too many people abandon the process because it confronts the flesh, exposes weakness, and requires change. Yet everything valuable in the kingdom is forged through refinement, not convenience. Therefore, this is a call to action for the true people of Yahweh. Stop resisting the process and begin trusting the one who established it. Do not despise the seasons of testing, growth, and correction, for they are shaping you into vessels fit for his purpose and his kingdom. The process may be difficult, but it is holy. It is Hakodesh. It may be slow, but it's righteous. And if we remain faithful, trusting Yahweh above our feelings and desires, we will discover that the process we once fought against was the very path leading us closer to him. Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Glory to the King is coming. Turn from your sins. Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Closer to Yah Ministries, kicking that thing gun barrel straight.